Number 8. J.D. Anderson. In January of 2022, a strongman on Britain's Got Talent required medical attention at the London Palladium following an act that involved him breaking ice with his head. J.D. Iceman Anderson was known for strongman feats that often involved him shattering objects with various parts of his body. A few years earlier, he'd established a Guinness World Record for smashing 88 ice blocks by simultaneously using his head and forearms. Prior to BGT, he'd auditioned for talent shows in Italy, France, Germany, and the US. During the 2022 audition, show judge Amanda Holden was filmed wincing as the ice blocks Anderson was breaking got progressively larger. The performance ended with him running head first into a giant ice wall. An onlooker described the aftermath by saying, "It soon became clear he was in pain and blood could be seen coming out of his head. The strongman was left with a bloodied face and had to be checked by the set's doctors. He wasn't expected to suffer long-term damage, but a concussion wasn't ruled out." Number 7. Katarina Kondrashina. Russian woman Katarina Kondrashina suffered a serious injury in 2015 while performing for Dancing, the country's version of the American So You Think You Can Dance series. 23-year-old Kondrashina auditioned in the southwestern city of Gelendzhik, and she was hoping to use the money from the competition to open a dance school in her town. The young woman, who also described herself as a model and fitness coach on her social media, was nearing the end of her solo dance. She then dropped into a sudden split and launched herself forwards with too much force. Kondrashina failed to brace properly and smashed her face into the floor. Even though she'd been seriously hurt, she continued the routine for roughly 30 seconds and finished it to the applause of the judges and the audience. Moments later, the extent of her injury was revealed as Kondrashina clutched her face and blood started pouring from her nose, which was suspected to have been broken in the impact. She was treated and bandaged backstage, but ended up having to be taken to the hospital. Number 6. Christy Cullum. In June of 2019, during an edition of NHS Got Talent, an English nurse was severely injured following a performance that involved a fire-breathing act. The talent show, held annually by the health organisation, took place at the Theatre Royal in Winchester, Hampshire, in front of an audience of several hundred. Fire breather Christy Cullum, a woman in her mid-30s, accidentally set herself ablaze during her performance. She had flammable liquid in her mouth and was ready to spit it out onto the flaming sticks in her hands. However, a droplet reached her windpipe, causing Cullum to splutter the fuel involuntarily. Her mouth instantly caught fire, but she reacted quickly to avoid potentially lethal damage. Cullum knew that breathing in would have been devastating, so she spat the burning fuel onto her body and then used her arms to protect her mouth, nose, and eyes from the flames. She reached the side of the stage where she was doused with a fire extinguisher. Fortunately, she was able to receive help immediately as many medical professionals were in attendance. The talent show was cancelled in the aftermath. Cullum was rushed to a hospital where she was placed in an induced coma for 2 weeks. She survived after suffering extensive burns to her neck, chest, and arms. Her painful recovery included skin grafts and laser treatment, but she vowed to perform with fire again. Number 5. John Godwin. A Welsh daredevil narrowly avoided death in October of 2021 after a failed stunt during rehearsals for America's Got Talent Extreme. 41-year-old escape artist Godwin was familiar to fans of the talent show and its homologous British series through several death-defying acts. One of them saw Godwin hanging upside down and doused in flammable liquid. He was then set ablaze and unshackled a straitjacket to activate a fire extinguisher suspended near his body. During the semi-finals of AGT in 2020, he hung from a zip line roughly 60 feet above the ground. Godwin only used his teeth to cling to the harness, the ropes of which had been set on fire, giving him limited time to open a lock and escape his shackles. He successfully completed the stunt, much to the praise of the show's judges and fans. His 2021 stunt for AGT Extreme was intended as his most daring to date, but it went horribly wrong, as shown by the harrowing footage circulated in its aftermath. Godwin was hanging upside down, high above the tarmac, at the Atlanta Motor Speedway in Hampton, Georgia. Simultaneously, on either side of the suspended stuntman, 2 cars were released and swinging on a collision course with each other. Godwin was meant to undo his shackles and safely drop to an airbag below before the 2 vehicles made contact. Unfortunately, the timing had been miscalculated, and he was crushed between the cars, which erupted into a fireball upon impact. Worse still, As the escape artist plummeted 40 feet, he missed the cushion and landed on his head. The emergency services were called and Godwin was airlifted to a hospital where he underwent urgent surgery. Remarkably, he survived, and it subsequently emerged that he'd suffered cuts, burns, and multiple broken bones. Later in October, Godwin posted a photo to his Instagram that revealed injuries to his face. He thanked those who'd supported him and assured his followers that he'd recover, writing, "I have a lot left to do in this world. AGT Extreme paused production in the incident's wake." Number 4. Shikara McClain. In 2011, a talent show rivalry resulted in a vicious attack perpetrated by a group of teenagers in Brooklyn, New York City. It was centered on a high school level competition inspired by the Glee TV series in which Shikara McClain, a gifted singer, was among the favorites. It was reported that, fueled by jealousy, other students plotted to attack McClain so that she couldn't take part in the show. She'd received an ominous message on Facebook the day before she was ambushed outside the home of her voice coach. McClain had been warned that others were going to hurt her so that she couldn't sing anymore. Aaliyah Smith, later identified as the attack's ringleader, and 4 others approached McClain, who was accompanied by a friend. Smith told her perceived rival, "I got a lock," referring to the padlock she'd hidden inside a sock prior to unleashing a barrage of strikes. A melee ensued as Smith and her accomplices, identified as students at Brooklyn Academy and Bedford-Stuyvesant Preparatory, attacked McClain. The latter's friend tried to intervene but was struck as well. McClain was left with a deep gash on her face which required 6 stitches to mend and a severely bruised jaw. Her attackers had achieved their nefarious goal as the beating had left McClain unable to sing. The talent show was cancelled in the incident's wake. 4 of the attackers, identified as Decory Fletcher, Ashanti Garner, Brittany Williams, and Shazmaya Morrison, all of whom were reported as being in their late teens, were arrested near the scene. Smith was taken into custody a few days later and, like the others, was charged with felony assault, menacing, weapons possession, and harassment. McClain, who eventually recovered from her injuries, became the face of an anti-bullying campaign in the aftermath. Number 3. Ryan Stock. In 2016, audience members attending an America's Got Talent shoot were left in shock following a failed Daredevil act. Performing couple Ryan Stock and Amber Lynn Walker, who were engaged to be married at the time, attempted a stunt that involved the latter shooting a crossbow bolt at the former's head. Stock, who was also a sword swallower, pushed a pole down his throat, at the end of which there was a bullseye. He then faced Walker as she pointed a crossbow loaded with a flaming bolt at the target. The woman then pulled the trigger, but her aim was off, and instead of hitting the bullseye, the sharp needle struck Stock in the throat. Flames engulfed his neck immediately after the impact, and he began patting himself down, mistakenly believing he'd caught fire. The couple stopped the performance. Stock maintained that he was all right, but judges Simon Cowell and Howie Mandel insisted he head straight to the emergency room. The pair walked off stage, and fortunately, Stock hadn't sustained life-threatening injuries. He later told the show's presenters that he'd been the one to insist they do the stunt, even though Walker was nervous about it. Today's topic was requested by KTM ×2, Megan Danielle, and The One Silver Shadow. If you have any other topics you'd like to learn about, subscribe and let us know in the comments section below. Number 2. Andrei Zeleznov. On an edition of Ukraine's Got Talent in the mid-2010s, Andrei Zeleznov presented a danger act that seemed to be a mixture of martial arts and knife work. The leather-clad performer began his routine energetically and, after doing a cartwheel, pulled out a sword that had been concealed in the back of his assistant's suit. Zeleznov demonstrated his swordplay skills before his assistant removed his shirt. The man then lay with his legs in the air on broken glass shards, visibly wincing as they etched into his bare back. He then rose to his feet and turned his back to the camera, which captured several glass fragments that had become embedded in his skin. His assistant, who in the meantime had donned a nurse's outfit off stage, returned to Zeleznov and helped him prepare for his big finish. It involved the daredevil jumping through a spinning hoop that had inward-pointing knives attached to it. As Zeleznov was getting ready to make his leap, several attendees and even a jury member were filmed clutching their faces in anticipation. Zeleznov jumped and went through the hoop, but one of the knives cut his back, while another caught his ankle, bringing the contraption down with him. The extent of the daredevil's injuries remained unclear. He managed to get back to his feet and saluted the audience, but as he turned around, streaks of blood were seen on his back. Number 1. Tice Nielsen and Mary Wolfe. In July of 2018, acrobats Tice Nielsen and Mary Wolfe were auditioning for America's Got Talent when their trapeze act went horribly wrong. The Salt Lake City couple, performing as Duo Transcend, was executing their acrobatics high above ground. Pyrotechnics were also a part of the display, and about midway through their routine, flames erupted from each side of the bar on which they were suspended and from the floor below. The culmination of their performance involved them both hanging upside down, with Tice blindfolding himself and catching Wolfe as she slid on his body and dropped head first towards the flaming floor. Unfortunately, the woman slipped his grasp, and a collective gasp echoed through the theater as she plummeted several feet. Watching from the audience was Wolfe's mother, who was visibly distraught upon witnessing the terrifying fall, and the couple's 2-year-old son. Wolfe hit the floor, but got up moments later without having sustained major injuries, and even asked the judges if they could perform the blindfold trick again. Thanks for watching. For $100, would you go on a live talent show and attempt the thing you're least good at? Let us know in the comments section below.